My first guest today is a comedian, Twitch streamer, and official creator for Evil Geniuses. And the second, a comedian, podcaster, and co-founder of the live comedy show, Good Comedy. I'm excited to welcome Lisa Wallen and Chris Mejia.
Hey.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we got video this time. Both of you have been on without video before, so it's nice to be on YouTube. Anybody just listening to us right now, make sure to check out the YouTube channel, like, share, subscribe, hit that notifications bell. Just getting that out of the way, fucking right away.
Content.
Yeah.
Yes.
Last time I was here, my dog kept fucking up the podcast because he couldn't sit straight for
the Thanksgiving
5 seconds.
pod.
Yeah, the Thanksgiving pod. That was like, I was fresh after, I think, getting him, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So what's up, Lisa? You've been thanks to that.
I was like saying, I think the last time I was here, we didn't have video, but also I was just starting streaming.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah,
Wasn't it? It was during the pandemic.
How long have you been streaming?
Like
Oh, was it pandemic?
Pandemic. I started the week after quarantine started, literally like March 2020.
Yeah, I think that was episode like 30 for this. And it's been 100 episodes, so it'd be 2 years.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and we talked about anime and shit, and you'd mentioned Evil Geniuses, but you've been doing a shitload of stuff for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was telling you earlier, it's like by the end of this year, I'll have taken like 14 out of state trips. Like it's crazy. And that's not just for work, that's what happens when you're like incredibly single and like you're like, well, I don't need kids. I guess I'll just go travel so I don't have to be stuck in my loneliness.
Yeah. Because you have cats, but cats are pretty self-sufficient.
Yeah, you know,
they actually love it when you leave.
Yeah, they're little monsters. They have anxiety when I leave now because they're like, are you gone for 5 days or 5 hours? We don't know. Yeah, I do a lot. I do content, I guess, production, writing, and hosting. And then I also kind of help run a team of creators. And then I'm also a sponsored streamer by them. Yeah.
Remind me, what is Evil Genius? Like, I looked at the website just...
And you're like, nothing about Lisa's on here.
No, Adam looked at the website, was like, I'm going to let her do it.
It's an esports organization. They're the only one based out of Seattle, which is really cool because it's like, if you want to go to esports, it's like you usually go to Texas or like California. Texas? Yeah, big esports and
really
just in those areas.
In Austin?
Yeah.
Or like somewhere else?
San Antonio, Austin.
Why Texas?
I don't know, because like Funimation's there, Rooster Teeth, like they're big nerdy techie towns. You know what I mean? But Seattle's never been really esports, and Evil Geniuses is one of like the first esports team. But like a lot of esports companies like 100 Thieves, Cloud9, they all have like content creators, like big streamers that advertise for them and they make money off them, all the stuff. But EG's like, they were recently bought out. They're a little far behind. So we started the content creation team here last year.
So what does the team explain to me? All of this is confusing as shit.
I will try to explain it as short as possible. So in esports, it's just like regular sports. You have your competitive teams and your sponsors and your partners, and that's where you make all the money. You know, like we have like LG, Monster, all these other cool partnerships. And then you have a team of creators that don't do like esports competitive, because I'm not trying to talk shit about esports players, but a lot of them aren't really online social content creators. They're really stuck on their game.
Yeah.
So they have people like us represent the company as a way to be like, oh, you work for EG, like holy shit, your LCS team is so cool, blah blah blah.
But you're playing games too, though, right? Like you have your own channel.
Yeah.
What is it, Lisa's Lair?
Yeah, so that's my talk show I have on my Evil Geniuses stream. So everything I do has nothing to do with the esports side.
Okay.
I represent the company, but what they want to do is they want to bring the esports fandom into regular gaming fandom. And so they have me, and like we have like 8 or 9 creators that are big streamers, and they all do variety gaming. And so they're trying to kind of merge those fandoms. So because it's like, you know, when our LCS teams, I guess, or our league or Dota or Call of Duty, not Call of Duty, CSGO teams aren't playing, like we're still...
I don't know any of the words you just said.
I'm also not an esports person. Like I play solo games because I just suck competitively. So it's like, it's very funny that I work in esports.
Esports is wild because I work like just so the audience knows, I've worked in my day job is like advertising and marketing, and at my first agency I was working at, I was tasked with like doing a presentation about some sort of media, and I chose esports. And I learned, like, I've always known about esports, but even as a gamer, I was just like, yeah, that's some really niche shit though. Like, few people really do that. And then when I read about it, I didn't know how secretly massive the esports world is. Like,
what is it? Which games is it predominantly?
League of Legends.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Valorant, basically any first-person shooter, like.
And are those computer games, or are they like PlayStation?
Usually PC games. Okay. And like people compete against each other. But the thing is like people love watching really good competitive. It's the same thing with like basketball. Like you find something that's, I want to watch these competitors and invest money and time. And the good thing is a lot of people watch esports are the rich nerds that got these big expensive jobs. So they like invest money into this. And if you look at it from an advertising end, it's so smart. Like think about, like, for example, like one of our sponsors, LG, it's like they could spend tons of money on a commercial to sell gaming monitors, but no fucking teenager is watching cable TV.
Yeah, it targets their audience immediately.
So they could just go watch a streamer where we just have like a little rotational and get a discount with our esports organization, and they would make so much more profit off that. So for any kind of media, and even like, you know, Monster, like I'm sponsored by Elysian, like this is the best advertising they can get. Is that it's cheapest and it goes straight to the people who are buying the product.
For sure.
So it is crazy.
But one of the big tournaments, correct me if I'm wrong, the international, at least historically, has happened here in Seattle.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was looking up the cash prizes, like if your team, how many people per team on League?
10 people.
10 people. So like if you came in last place. Oh.
5 people.
I mean, you said 10 confident enough that I was believing it.
Because I'm like, is it 10 against each other? Like 5 and 5? I think it's 5.
Okay. Well, if
you
your
should
team
definitely know this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you should.
That's the thing is I don't work in the esports end. So it's like people ask me these questions. I'm like, yeah, LCS is
If anyone at Evil Geniuses is currently listening to Cover Your Ears for the next 5 minutes.
They know this. Like we were planning on doing a league like team together, and it's 10 people. So it's 10 people with 5 and 5. So yes, I can name our players, but I'm like, how many are there?
Yeah. But like, if you got last place, like the team had to share, like I think like $200,000 or $300,000 cash prize. So it's like if you come, I mean, obviously you have to be really good just to get in,
for sure.
But like the fact that if you're good enough to get in, you can still be dead last and come home with like what is probably an annual salary for most people.
Yeah.
And
what are these people like though? Like the actual like esports gamers?
They're all children. They're all like 19 to 24-year-old gamers.
Incels? Like, well, I don't like.
I mean,
I'm not.
yes,
probably more socially awkward.
It's actually very funny because it depends. Because like League predominantly has a very toxic fan base, and I shouldn't say that, but it's like the problem with competitive games is that they're not very friendly for people like me that never played them. Like you dip in online, and you have people who are not going to be novices and not going to be nice to you, and to mention, I have a vagina, like I have a woman's body,
and you're also like they can see you, right? Like a lot of the if you're streaming or
if you're streaming, I would not stream these games. Yeah, I would play with friends, and so it's hard to dip into competitive gaming. Like competitive gaming has always been very male dominated, but the best thing about esports versus regular sports is that it doesn't matter. Like you don't have to have a certain physique.
Oh, yeah.
So like Evil Geniuses is really good because we have an all women's Valorant team. Like we have a mixed gendered like competitive teams too, because it doesn't matter. And esports got really big. It's always been like big, but it got well known during the pandemic because people couldn't watch real sports as much, so they started watching esports because there's just people who just need to watch something competitive.
Well, I've had 2 people come on. We did like a full thing of video games, like the evolution of video games, and
I wasn't invited.
You weren't. I should have had you. Like looking back on it, but we were talking about just like both these guys loved watching competitive video games, and I was like, why do you like? I can never imagine sitting in my apartment doing like Jamal Banyan, who he he has one screen just all the time playing of other people playing.
Well, and it's like with like football. You don't play football, but you enjoy watching
it's like porn, you know.
And it's like porn. Well, that's honestly during quarantine. That's how I got into like enjoying watching Twitch, because I got super addicted to
porn.
Yeah, I got super addicted to porn.
Like just while you're working,
before I was in control, and then after a while, it was like checking weather. It was just like, where the titty at? Okay, cool. But
I watch a lot of streamers now.
I didn't not think that's
No, I was gonna say like
I'm single. I've been watching a lot of
streamers.
I've been making up for lost time. That's what.
A lot of cam roulette. I do like when I like it's kind of what you said. Like when I started streaming, I was like, I don't really see the appeal because it is so generational. Because we didn't grow up with like YouTubers. We grew up with like
games, but the concept of watching people play it wasn't a thing.
Well, like that's what they described as Jamal had an older sibling, and he would watch his brother play the game because he was better at it than him. And a lot of it is like seeing how people play differently and how they can be better than you. Yeah.
Like I'm playing Metal Gear Solid right now.
Classic.
I never played them.
Classic.
And so the people who are really obsessed with that game, because it's a very niche community that love that game, they are constantly looking for people who've never played the game before and watch their reactions. And so I get that.
Yeah.
Like when I did my MGS stream, it was like I probably had 70 more people than I normally do watch me. And I was like, what the fuck? Like this is a PS1 game, but people are like, she hasn't been spoiled. She has like they're craving that fresh reaction. And like when I got super into Elden Ring and like Dark Souls and stuff, I would watch people play the game to see how they would do their builds and how they would attack a boss. And also like I love podcasts, but I think podcasts requires like a more like focused like hearing and listening. And when I'm working, I would just have streamers up because it's very passive.
Yeah.
So like a lot of people watch me.
People shouldn't feel that way about this podcast, though.
No,
it's very good for all options that you need.
But like with streaming, it's like it's just kind of like a good background noise. Like I'll have a bunch of people watching, but like 5 people are chatting. So I'm like, oh, like 80% of people just have me up.
Right.
Just have me up. So it is really cool.
Yeah. What is, for people listening and watching, what is your, because both you guys are on Twitch, right?
Yeah.
I am not on the level of Lisa.
But you this is your opportunity.
Every now and then I stream. I've just never had a schedule consistent enough that
you've been playing like Spider-Man or something.
Correct me if I'm wrong. That helps if you consistently.
Yeah, because I haven't been as consistent, and it really affects your viewership. Because they'll be like, "Oh, she streams Monday through Thursday, but I skipped this Thursday." So everyone's like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm fucking tired."
Yeah.
Like,
well, you're working a crazy schedule. Like you're streaming constantly, you're working this day job, and you're doing like I mean,
and
you just did and stand up. Were you at Comic-Con recently?
San Diego Comic-Con, and then I went to Evo, which is an esports event, and then I did PAX last weekend. All within the last 40 days.
What are you doing there? Are you doing interviews or like what's your role with these conventions? Oh yeah, my bad, dude. Yeah, sorry, you never plugged your thing.
Well, no, I was just gonna say I first got into watching it because I got addicted to Apex Legends. That's my favorite battle royale game. And I started watching streams for that same reason of like, I wonder what the pros are doing, what moves they do that I'm not realizing. And you actually really do pick up like, oh, you do this to do this faster. That makes so much, like, for example, I didn't know that when you're looting a box, you can like sidestep, which is good to do because then if someone's sniping you while you're looting, you're not like completely standstill.
you're like, yeah.
No, you're like, no, of course. Yeah. I also did in fucking high school. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, dude, poggers. Totally.
Dude, I had a buddy that played competitive Halo in high school, like early fucking like Halo 1, Halo 2. And I played with him one time. Like he was ranked within the top 50 or something in the country.
He probably knows my coworker.
He probably does. Like it was early shit. And I played with him one time and we were like drinking at the time. It was like just seeing what it was like to play with this dude. And he fucking, like he was just messing around. He mopped the floor. And a lot of the time he was so much more vertical. Like I never thought about playing the game where you're like jumping quite a bit, but he could jump.
Oh, he was a bunny hopper
people and shoot like from above them into their head. Where like if you start playing that game like 3-dimensionally more, you're way harder to beat. You just have to be able to like develop that skill. So yeah,
I wish
that was
competitive
like the box
gaming
thing side to side
and streaming were what they are now back when I was in middle school and high school.
Oh, yeah.
Because when I was in middle school and high school, I was a youth group kid, so I wasn't trying to fuck. I was also trying not to masturbate because that was a sin. And I was just always home because my mom was like, she just didn't want me really staying at people's houses because she was just afraid of like something happening to me.
How did I not know any of this about you?
Oh, you've known I was a youth group kid.
No, I
really?
didn't. Yeah.
Oh, I was hella religious from middle school to high school.
Really?
I was like,
There's got to be some amazing pictures of you.
Oh, too many. There's
Oh my
too
God.
many. There is very much like, there was a lot. I will never forget. There was a lot of girls in my youth group who one of them learned. They were like, wait, when I hug you, you feel my boobs on your chest? I'm like, I mean, yeah. And so ever since then, she started giving side hugs. And like then the rest of the girls in the youth group started giving side hugs, and I was like, I've been robbed of titties. It's just, which obviously, like, I'm not like, obviously they're entitled to do what they wanted, but it was also knew a girl who, like, obviously most people were like, I'm getting a purity ring, you know, a promise ring. I'm not gonna have sex before marriage. And then there was one girl who took it the next level, and she's like, I'm not gonna have a kiss until my wedding day. And I was like, no. So, like, even religious me was like, that's where I draw the line. Like, that is wild.
Well, it's also because like the competitive gaming back then, like one of my like coworkers was a big Halo 2, Halo 1 competitor, and he's like won the big competitions, and he always says like, dude, if it was like now, I'd be a millionaire.
Oh, yeah. For
he's
sure.
like, but now I don't. Like,
yeah.
Early iterations of the market.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I was so good at Halo because that's all I did was play Halo 2, and then when Halo 3 came out, I played that. I was all about it so much
we
that
played
like
1,500 matches my first quarter in college. Like it was me and 3 other guys, and we would somebody would go to class, like hand off a controller, and it was just constant.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been naturally good at shooting games, but the fact that it was like, I was at that age where I could do that all day.
Oh yeah.
Like now as an adult, after a couple hours, I'm like, I want to like watch TV, go outside, go hang out with friends.
And you just have responsibility.
Yeah, and
here's the problem now though that I've noticed is that you can now like, I'm gonna aspire to be a professional gamer or a streamer, blah blah blah, which is cool if you can do it.
Right.
But now you have all these. I'll get like, my stream is labeled 18+ because I like talk about drugs and shit. Like I don't need to have a 15-year-old being like, I tried acid and I died or something like that. Like, but they'll come to my chat and they'll be like, how do I become like a professional streamer? And it's like, oh, no. Now there's children who think they can like do this and like not go to school and like just focus on like getting really good at games. And it's just like, oh, now this is like bad, you know?
That sounds like the streaming version of when an open micer does open mics for 2 months
Oh,
and then
God.
they create a Facebook fan page and it's just like, oof.
It's also really funny when people ask me for streaming advice because I'm like, I still don't make good money on Twitch. Like I make it because my job sponsors me. If I wasn't sponsored, I'd be working a lot harder to make more money on there. But like, no one should be going into streaming thinking they're gonna make money. Like it's all passive income to me. You
Try
know?
to if you can grab that mic, just bring it a little bit. I know you're like there we go. Yeah, I don't want people to be like, fuck, I can't hear her the whole time. So.
Yeah, loud ass Lisa, you can't hear me the whole time. Yeah, and it's like there's comedians now who are like, okay, so how do I make money doing this? Like, how do I blah blah? I'm like, you're asking the wrong person.
You know who's making money is all these fucking platforms,
right?
Like Instagram, Twitch, like we're all working for them.
Yeah.
And none of them are paying most
We're working for them
Instagram
for validation. It's the most toxic relationship.
Yeah, I mean, you posted about it recently.
Yeah.
Like it's a fucking really difficult thing, and you kind of have to do it, but it's
my job now though.
Yeah.
Like literally in my job now is to focus on TikTok and YouTube, which is great. Having a job that's like you need to work on content is good, but at the same time it's like I'm burnt out. Like, all the time. Like by the time I have a comedy show on a weekend, I'm like all my creative energy is just gone.
Because you spent it like just
being
pressing
incredibly
little buttons
online,
and like hashtags.
Well, because before I got my current job, I was going through that situation of I wanted to do a career change, and the first thing I thought of was like content creator, content management, because I thought I love making memes and posting online. Like I might as well get paid for it. So then that I'll feel like my job is something I'm naturally good at.
Yeah.
But then I got worried about that of like, am I going to spend all of my creative juices on my day job that when it comes to the thing I'm actually passionate about, like I don't have enough energy for. And just also it probably, I don't know about you, but I was also worried of like, am I going to spend so much energy benefiting someone else's social presence that I wouldn't even have the time and energy to try to benefit my own?
Yeah.
So like that was one thing I was worried about, why I didn't like further try to get into that.
I just upload TikToks and don't even look at them. Like I don't look at my notifications or anything. I just upload them just to have them.
Okay, that's a weird flex, but all right.
No, like
I just post and I don't even look at it. You know, it's just
like not saying, oh yeah, like I'm so. It's just like I just have them there, so I have clips because I don't have time to go to open mics and like sell my shit to people. Like if I want to get bookings, I'm like, here's my TikTok, here's my reels. Like that's the only reason why I do it now because it's like but yeah, it'd be nice to make like a little bit of money. Instagram did pay me 1 month for reels, which was great. And I think I made like $300, which was like, fuck yeah. But then I was like, no one else is doing that.
Yeah.
Like fucking TikTok's not going to pay you for their shit.
When they first, like during quarantine, then they created the Creator Fund. And then I signed up for it. And I was getting like cents for like this stuff. Like I remember I had a video go viral, 500,000, lots of engagement. And I got maybe like $3 per day from that. And then I heard so many rumors, and it ended up happening to me, of people who were always being successful with their videos. And the second they joined the Creator Fund, they noticed a downfall in their engagement and their views.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was just very much like TikTok not wanting to have to pay a lot to people. So it was just like I did that, and then my shits just started tanking. And then by the time I left, it just became permanent, where like nothing I was posting was really getting anything.
I know. Yeah.
And then it just ruined the fun. And then now I'm either shadow banned or something, where everything I post doesn't get anything. And that's why I've taken a break, because I'm like, this stopped being fun. And I liked it more when it was fun.
That's why I don't look at it. I just upload it just to have it on there, and I just ignore it. I'm like, I cannot get sucked into this. We have a TikTok creator, and she's like, I upload every day. I always have like at least 5 videos a week, and she like has millions of followers. I'm like, yeah, I don't have that energy. I'm just gonna upload 1 stream clip and then a comedy clip in like 2 weeks. I don't give a shit about how it does. I just need to have it there just to have it. And if my job wants me to focus on that, great. But then I don't know.
You're just balancing so much shit too. Like I mean, I looked at your schedule like going into
every
this.
Sunday. I post
like,
my schedule.
You're streaming, you're doing comedy, you're
traveling,
like all the social media stuff. You're traveling, and then doing fucking conventions. Like I saw just some of the pictures of that and shit. Like what are you even doing at those?
Well, I did San Diego Comic-Con because I was already doing comedy shows, and I ended up getting a badge, and it was great. I made a lot of connections. Like now my whole job is like networking, which is cool, but you have to be careful because a lot of the relationships you have in this same thing with comedy are very transactional. And it's like, is that the kind of friendships you want to make? And like, I literally have these meetings with my boss all the time. Like I'll meet people that I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I met so-and-so. They're so big in the gaming industry. And they're like, okay, but you are starting to become one of those people. And like, you're becoming somebody that they're going to be intimidated by. And you also have to be careful about the people who want to be friends with you. What are they using you? Is this a real connection? And like, I'm all for transactional friendships. Like that's what stand-up comedy is.
Yeah.
You know, like I have friends that be like, hey, do you know if I can get a booking if I come to Seattle? I'm not gonna be like, is that the only reason why you're talking to me? Like I wouldn't do that. But it's different in gaming because it's like, I'm a fresh face, single woman. It's just like when I first started comedy, but now in the gaming industry. And so, yeah, like I have to be careful, but I think I'm really good because of comedy at reading those signals. And so since I've done the conventions, like I've connected with, the VP of PAX, like I've connected with, a bunch of voice actors, creators, and I'm like going to have my shows, and it's great. Like I am very grateful I get those opportunities. And then I went to Evo to support our 2 fighting game players. Our main fighting game player is probably the most fighting game player in the entire world. Their name is Sonic Fox, and they're a gay non-binary furry. and they're black. So they're literally the most marginalized person I can imagine, but they're a massive shit talker and they're incredible at all the games.
Real quick, to the furry community, y'all are dope. I've met, I forget when and where it was, but I met a furry and like, you know what? Y'all deserve better.
Oh
okay?
my God. They have plushies that get sold out all the time. Like our work provides plushies with them. And also on top of that.
What is a furry? I don't even know.
I feel like there is a negative, like just like with like gamers and stuff, that's like, yes, there is the side that's gross and toxic, but there's also the side that's just like fine. It's just like some people just like having a fursuit and like a fursona, and that's fine. And I've heard from artists that furries always tip and do the best with commissions because they know what they're asking for, and so usually they have a lot of money. I realize that. I watched a documentary on furries.
So wait,
I would actually like to watch that. I would really like to watch that.
It was like, wow, a lot of these people are like really successful, and they just like they bond. Like it's kind of, for me, it's kind of like how people use like Sims or like video games. It's like sometimes you just don't want to be yourself.
Yeah.
And so you find something that you can engage in, and you find a community of people like me. I play a lot of video games, and so the people who watch my community, like MGS, like Metal Gear Solid fans, Yakuza fans, they find people who are like-minded that are like, oh my God, this person connects with this character like I do. I mean, look at my fucking body. Like, so I get it on the level of like, okay, like sometimes you don't want to have to focus on yourself, so you focus on something else. And I think like furry community, it's like, it's more of a physical thing versus like a video game. Does that make sense?
What are they doing though? Like, what are the activities?
They're just chilling in the suit. Like I saw before I met
thousands of dollar suits.
Before I met the furry, the first time I saw a furry,
I met the furry.
I met the furry. I saw a furry like out in the wild at a Target the Target in Northgate. It was like a child furry too, because it was like the furry and their mom.
Are you sure that wasn't an animal?
Yeah, you're right. It was
like Halloween costume.
No, it's like an actual full on suit. And like I'll never forget. Actually, no.
Gotta Google this shit.
The furry I saw in the wild, it was just a head. They just had the head. No, I think they had the paw. No, they had the paws, but they had like a regular T-shirt on. But I thought that moment, it was so sweet to me because it was like, this child is a furry, and the mom, whether the mom understands it or not, is like supporting the child and letting them be a furry at the like Pizza Hut area of the Target. And I thought that was very sweet. I thought like that's how, just because you don't understand it doesn't mean you should like shit on
mascots.
Here's the thing. Let's go to the darker side of it. Is that I was like, okay, some people really sexualize this part. I watched Beastars, which is a great anime on Netflix on shrooms, and it was turning me on. And it's all like anthropomorphic characters. I was like, I kind of get it.
I mean,
the wolf in that show, super fucking hot. I'd fuck him. You know.
First of all, everyone, if you say you haven't seen a cartoon animal that you wanted to fuck, you are a fucking liar. All right. A lot of straight women that I've known had a sexual awakening with the fox from fucking Robin Hood, Disney's Robin Hood. Most guys, if not all straight guys, wanted to fuck Lola Bunny, whether they want to admit it or not. Also,
some people just weren't afraid to embrace that part of themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? Like,
exactly.
It's fine. Anyways.
Who was the animal you wanted to fuck? Whose cheeks did you want to clap?
I'm trying to think. I looked at
the rabbit from what's the zoo movie? The Disney's Zootopia. The rabbit from Zootopia. She could get it. Don't look at me like that.
I don't think I've watched enough of that shit to even
People
be
wanted
able
to fuck that fox too. Foxes, man. They just.
I'm trying to think what animal I want to fuck now. Character. Not actual animal.
This is not where I thought this episode was gonna go. Like I'm fine with it, but
oh yes, the wolf from Elden Ring, Blide. Oh my God. Anyways,
how has this never come up in any conversation at this point?
You haven't had two
furries wanting to fuck
on your
animals?
show to talk to you, okay? No, it's just like not to deviate to the furry talk, but it's just like having that person be a representative or company is so big for that community. And not just the furry community, the black community, the gay community, the non-binary community. This person is everything. And some companies, especially in esports, because they're ran by like really bro culture dude, they'd be like, fuck that shit. I don't want that shit in our community. But like, since our company is women ran and we know what the fuck we're doing, we're like, not only are they the best player in fucking fighting games, they've won Evo like 7 years in a row. They're also a good represent. I know. In fact, people like booed when they won because they're like, we want to fucking win again. Like we were
They're
so
the Golden
pissed.
State Warriors of esports.
We fucking hated it.
You're great, but fucking give us a chance.
They're a great representative for our company because it's like we also have a trans fighting game player and she's incredible too. And it's like having those people, because you can't have that in sports, you know, because sports is so like, oh, are they really a woman or not? Or like, oh, we don't want that shit in our community. Like, who was that football player years ago that got, like, when they had his announcement video, he like kissed his boyfriend and it was like a huge fucking deal.
Was it Michael Sam?
It was.
I think so.
It might have been. They're like, oh, we don't want a gay player. Like being gay to have anything to do with your like build or your masculinity.
I don't want to be on the field and he wants to fuck me. I think he's more concerned about concussional damage.
Right.
I don't think.
Or just winning the game.
And so I think with esports, what makes it so like inclusive is like we have, because it's not physical based. It's like you have the opportunity to represent so many different types of marginalized people, and that's why I'm like. I was a little hesitant to join esports during the Me Too movement of Twitch, but then I found out our director is a black woman, our fucking CEO. Like I was like, oh, absolutely. They already have won me over because she knows exactly how to run a company for people who have been in abusive environments.
Yeah.
And so I look at it that way. It's like, yeah.
You also connect with people over the internet. So it's like geography doesn't matter as much. Like people that might relate to what you're talking about in the Midwest.
Oh yeah,
can do that just as easily.
We have
where it's
players
like,
from Sweden, Poland. We have players from Korea, and like they just got to fly out and play together, and they're good. But like, yeah, it's like there's so much international representation that you can't get in sports, and so people see the value in that.
Yeah, and if you're that person that's kind of isolated and you don't have that community,
and now everyone knows that I want to fuck the character from Beastars, but they already knew that if they watched my stream, so it's fine. Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Okay, so Chris, let's transition into you a little bit.
You don't want to talk about fucking animals anymore?
I'm good on that. Like, I don't have anything to say.
Fucking coward.
Somewhere in the back of my mind is I watched.
You're going to have a wet dream later.
Every time you watch something with an anthropomorphic character, you're going to be like, oh, fuck.
I'm missing something here.
It's like, I'm trying to enjoy this Pixar movie, but them things be respectfully thangin'. I can't.
Jesus Christ.
So
you've been pretty busy though. You've been traveling quite a bit.
Yeah, I've been. This year, comedy wise, has been good to me. It's for majority of my comedy career, I always wanted to travel to do comedy, and just I wasn't in a financial place that I could do that. And like I know I'm privileged to say this, but like now financially, I'm in a state where I can do that shit and travel and like not have to worry about if I'm going to make enough money back. Which I feel like for me, when you first start traveling for comedy, that's unfortunately how you have, depending on your financial situation, that's how you have to view it. Cause it's like, you're probably not going to be at a state where you can travel and then like headline and shit, where then you can make enough money to like pay off the expenses.
Yeah. I think most people have no idea how bad the money is. Too.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, you're
traveling for comedy is like the ideal situation is you breaking even.
Oh God.
Yeah.
I asked my stream how much money you think a comedian makes, and someone's like, I don't know, $100 for like 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, you are an angel.
Do you know what I would do if you told me there was a booking for $100?
I'm sorry. Is this a casino that you're talking about? Yes. That's not. Yeah. Like, it's funny. People are hilariously they understand like I know people who are on like fucking the night shows and they still have day jobs. You know, it's like you don't. Yeah, it's crazy.
So but part of you being able to do that was your show that you developed, right? Good Comedy.
Yeah. So I co-produce a show here in Seattle called Good Comedy with the homie Bo Johnson. And a good thing about producing is that if you have a quality show that people want to be on and travel to, it really helps. To the point that you're talking about with networking, it helps with networking because like networking, I personally hate networking. I prefer, if I'm going to spend my time talking to someone, I want to talk to them because I want to. Like
so
I
it's
genuinely
not transactional.
right.
Yeah.
Or if it's not that, I'm a fan of them and I'm just like, I would just like to meet you as a person.
They're fucking funny in comedy. Like
exactly.
it's not like that's the main thing. Are you actually a funny person? Or are you like good at the business side of this thing?
Exactly. And like I hate, because to me it feels malicious to be like, I'm talking to you because there's something I could get out of it. But just I don't think it's actually malicious. That's just how you move up in the world.
Show sometime soon, though, it would be nice.
Oh yeah.
That's the real reason I brought you on.
Yeah.
No, I have done your show here in Seattle. It was a ton of fun. Anybody watching, I really recommend going and checking it out.
No, we're gonna have you back. We're gonna have you back. But it just helps to you too as well. But it just helps to like when you network, when you actually have something you can bring to the table. Because then whether or not if that person likes you or thinks you're funny, you at least have something to offer. And then, which then kind of lowers the pressure of when you travel. If you didn't do too well on a show, you could still be like, oh, but I got a show if you ever come up. And then they do, and then they see you succeed. It's like, oh, okay, I just saw them on an off night or something.
Right.
So that kind of helps redeem yourself of like, hey, if I didn't crush it on that show, I'll show them how good I am. And that's just like the state of comedy. You like, if you bring something to the table, people will at least look at you differently in the sense that they'll give you more of a chance than if you were just someone who went on a show and did bad. But yeah, having the show has really helped that in the sense of not only being able to add more to the Seattle community. I think at first Bo and I started the show because shows weren't really happening and we wanted to, get stage time. But just Seattle as a whole, for a quick rant, if you're watching this and you're in the Seattle community, there's a reason why scenes like Portland do it a million times better than us. Because they actually support each other and everyone wants to do their own shit and create shit. And here in Seattle, everyone wants everyone else to put in the work. And if we want to have the comedy scene that we would like to have, we need more people, not only producing, but actually putting on good shows and like making those tough decisions of booking. I'm like, yeah, there's like sometimes where I'm like, I like this person, but I don't know if they're going to be able to do well.
I wish I could produce. I loved producing. I just don't have the fucking time.
It's exhausting. It becomes less work once you've gotten it to the point where people know what it is.
Yeah.
But even then, it's still work because it's like you're going to have off, periods.
Well, also feels like, and you might agree with this, like, when did you start comedy?
When I moved here, basically. So like I did a very little bit before I moved here, but basically didn't really like be like, oh, I'm pursuing this until. How many
years was it though?
A little over 8 years.
And what about you?
4 now. Like almost 4.
Damn, okay, all right. Well, doing better than us anyway. No, just kidding. No, but yeah, like when I started 8 years ago, it was like there was still like hundreds of people trying to do comedy, but there was obviously a very small group of people that were bookable. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I felt like it was easier for me to do gigs because I really put myself out there. And then the pandemic started. And then TikTok, Instagram became a big thing. And now it feels like everybody wants to do comedy. Mm-hmm. And the way people have started to do, and I've even noticed this, like going to mics and going to sets, is I can notice when people are doing like jokes specifically to get those clips versus actually writing comedy. Like the stuff I put on my like Instagram and TikTok are like small snippets because I'm like, I have bigger jokes I'd rather focus on. But like, it's so competitive now because everyone's like, dude, are you filming your set? Are you filming your set? Can you film my set? Like, and I do the same thing. Like, I'm a victim of it.
Seeing open micers with the nicest cammers being set up. And it's like, work on getting, no offense, but work on getting 3 minutes before. They also
get, like, and I don't want to be that boomer, but they get really cocky too. I've done shows with people that haven't been doing comedy for that long and they'll like talk down to me. They're like, well, I've never seen you in the scene or I've never seen you at mics. I'm like, yeah, because I've been doing this for 8 fucking years and I just get booked when I get booked. Like, they're like, well, how often are you doing comedy? I'm like, only a couple times a month. Like, I'm trying to do it like every night, every weekend. I'm like, great, man. That was me fucking 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't have that shit now. Like, it's just, Or like you're new to comedy and you have clips blow up. And I remember one time I saw someone who's very new to comedy have a lot of clips blow up and they were building a following, which good for them.
But then they were like, their videos were ending with, tell me what cities to perform in. And it's just like for your benefit, it's probably better to weigh on building a good set, whether it's a feature set or a headliner set, not even as a like shade, but it's just like or else you're going to go on the road and potentially, you know, fuck yourself over.
I have to tell you guys something quick. Yeah, I'm like,
please. You know me, I love tea.
I'm going to preface this by saying this person was incredibly nice and would
I'm already going to love this story.
That is how you start a shit talking story. Let me clarify. I don't think they're a bad person.
Don't tell them I said this, but
I've had these types of situations happen before, and the person was the worst person to work with. This person was very, very kind, and I did a show last night, and the person rented a theater, and they had 250 people come out, and they did an hour. And the last time they did comedy was like a mic at TCC. And then the last time they performed at this theater. And it was all their like friends and family and shit. And
shout out to having 200 friends and family.
I know.
Holy
it was in their hometown. And I really don't want to like put anybody on blast, but it was fucking crazy because the confidence to go do an hour without doing comedy in like 6 months essentially, and just be like, you know, I'm gonna fucking do this. And I'm out at least 6 nights a week. Like I have to, for where I'm at in what I'm doing.
You're
and like
doing great, dude.
But I have to flex that muscle. I lose it quickly.
For you at where you're at, this is the best thing for you.
I would do it anyway.
Not
I'm a
as
loser.
boomers.
Like this is what I like to do.
I think a quick pivot, or not a quick pivot, but a quick sidebar. Like when people talk about how much you should do comedy, yes, comedy is like most things where if you want to get great at it, you have to do it a lot. But so like I agree with the grind. I'm not saying you have this. I agree with the grind mindset to a degree that yes, if you want to get things, if comedy is a social thing for you, like that's why you do it as little as you want. I don't give a shit. Just don't get upset if you don't get booked. If you want to take it, it's like the difference between someone who's like working at the gym every day to become like a basketball player versus the guy who like once a week goes to the YMCA.
Oh, yeah. I have so many people come to me, when are you gonna post more comedy clips? I'm like, I gotta get fucking booked to do that. And I'm not gonna get booked because I don't make a fucking, I'd be like, whoever wants to book me, like I'm here, take me, like, you know.
And
like,
it's also an art form. So like if you looked at like martial arts, like you've done 8 years of training. So whatever belt you've kind of gotten to, if you really like ramped up, like, oh, I'm going to go out every night this week, it's going to take you 4 or 5 days to get kind of like where you need to be like
I had
fully
my years
cooking.
Of consistency, and now it's like, and streaming helps a lot because I'm constantly, I do 4 to 5 hours every night. Yeah. So I know
you're riffing, you're flexing those similar muscles, all that shit.
Written more jokes in the last 6 months I ever had being a comedian because of just, I'll find the most LOLs in my chat and be like, that's a new bit. And it's so stupid. But
and you're
like,
targeting
but that's how
the
you,
audience.
That's what works for you. And if that's what works for you, that's how you do it.
Yeah, don't say you're a loser. No, this is your thing. Like, you don't have other things like we do that, like, otherwise, I think if I never started streaming and just went through the pandemic and didn't do comedy, I would be starving to do comedy right now.
This saved my ass during comedy.
Yeah.
Like, just to have that, like, consistency. But, like, when those new people come in, they're coming into, like, a new art form.
So stupid.
And they're, like, they're a white belt. Mm-hmm. And they're like, you know what? I think I figured out how to throw a punch differently. And you're like, hey, so maybe you should learn how to throw a punch first. And then, like, if you're going to reinvent the process, maybe wait a little bit. And they're like, no, you don't understand. I am unique. And you're like, you're going to break your fucking hand. Like this, just watch how other people are doing. And nobody wants it. Everybody has their, I'm terminally unique. I need to do this my own way. And it's good to be original, but it's also like good to learn from people that are doing it well. You really have to humble
yourself in any industry. Like most of our humbling comes from imposter syndrome, but like those people who come in and they're like, they're hot shit because they've been doing good. We were all like that, man. Like, I didn't start streaming and did really well, but those months that I was like ramping up viewers, I thought I was hot shit, and then they all went away because I stopped playing the game that they wanted me to play, and I was like, oh wow, this is what it's like being a streamer. Like, same thing with comedy. You get all these good sets, and then you find that audience that doesn't give a shit about you, and you're like, go
perform in a fucking VFW for a bunch of old people.
Right?
And see how you
go humble yourself. Like, it's the same. Yeah, it works in any type of entertainment industry, really. Yeah.
I will be the first to admit that I truly
are the hot shit.
I am hot shit. I don't know. For the longest time, I was dog shit at comedy, and I thought I was great, and I was always upset not getting opportunities I thought I deserved. And then looking back, I was like, I was terrible at comedy until like 2019. 2019, I really started to get an idea of what my voice was on stage. But then even then, when I compare myself to where I am now, like
I was terrible until last year, but
versus 2019, I'm like 2019, I sucked. And like, honestly,
every 2 to 3 years, you look back at what you're doing, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
that? Like it just. It
I already kind of feel
like,
about that with everything I was writing last year.
Yeah.
Versus every joke I've written this year, where I'm just like, I feel like comedy is all about finding your voice. When you first start comedy, you're basically doing a bad impression of a comedian you like until you figure out you on stage. Because you can know who you are as a person, but who you are on stage, it's different. It's
Dude,
very.
I saw this kid doing a Jesselneck last night, like him basically, and it was. He got off stage. I followed him. I looked at him and I said, "Hey man, like, keep doing what you're doing, but like, you are so lucky you didn't come into this when I did, because if you said the shit that you just said on stage, like in the rooms when I was starting, no one would let you perform. Like, it was just, it's such a different scene.
Please tell us what he said. No, just kidding. No.
But it was just like, super dark shit that's like kind of meta, where you're like, oh, this is just dark to be dark. But like the wrong people hear that and they'd be like, fuck this guy. He's edgelord, whatever. And he is, but like.
I have a good story that might kind of transition to our mental health one. So when I first started my job at EG, I never realized how much I self-deprecated myself in my conversations, because I always had like comedian friends, male friends. Like, I never was very like feminine. I don't know how to say it. Like, I've always struggled with that part of my life. But there was one event that I talk about all the time that literally changed how I talk and view myself. Like, I don't even know if you can tell, but I'm a lot more confident than I've ever been. Like, the last one of those podcasts, I was still kind of like, my sad little self. But I went to this panel, and there's this woman that works with us. Her name's Gamer Doc. She's a doctor, and she's like our kind of like our mental health, physical health therapist for esports. And we really bonded that night. And I said something to her where I said, if we became best friends, you would be the smart one, I'd be the dumb one. And I said that in passing, and my boss literally grabbed my arm and was like, all right, I've been trying to tell you this for months, but you need to stop saying shit like that. I was like, what are you talking about? She goes, every opportunity you get, you self-deprecate and joke around about yourself, which I get it. That's who you are. But you are now in a position where people really, really listen to what you say, and you're constantly making jokes about how you're stupid or your uneducation, that you didn't really go to college and all this stuff. And she was like, you need to fucking stop. Anytime you take a compliment, you need to stop. And I was like, you need to stop being like, oh no, like, you need to learn how to accept things. Right. I said, okay. And lately, when I've been posting reels on Instagram and TikTok, I was like, I'm going to try to watch some of my old stand-up and see if it works. And literally, all my jokes were like, I fucking hate myself. Every single joke that I had was like, I was downplaying my value as a person. And in a jokingly way, like, some of it was like really funny, and I still make a lot of suicidal jokes. But like, it was like, I wasn't bad at comedy, but I realized so much of my comedy was like, I don't want anyone to think that I'm a good person. I don't want anyone to think that I'm attractive or valuable, and like, I'm single and like, I'm sad because I deserve it. That's how all my comedy came off of. And I was like, holy shit, I did not notice this until now. Like, I thought this shit was funny because it was, but it wasn't me. It was like, wow, you can tell this bitch fucking hates herself.
Yeah. You don't realize how little you think that that you are valuable until you finally realize your value.
Yeah.
Cause like, I used to be the same, where like like, yeah, like this is going to sound like a brag. Like, yeah, I had a glow up and then I started.
We know it, man. You're the most photogenic person on the fucking internet. Every picture that Chris has looks like a stock photo. It pisses me off.
Honestly, when I was on the dating apps, I came off as a fuckboy because I just always looked so photogenic and like had the nice headshots. And I'm like, no, I'm just like a cute bitch in front of the camera. Like, it's just, I'm sorry. Like, once you get to know me, you realize I have very little self-esteem.
Oh my God. It was the same thing. Like me, it's like people would be like, you only got bookings because you're hot or because you're a woman. It's like they constantly downplayed your value. And I would make jokes about that. And they're like, no. EG could hire any fucking streamer, but they hired you. They could have booked any female comedian. They booked you. Like, stop fucking telling me.
90% of that has nothing to do with you. It's that person being fucking insecure.
Right.
And them
they're just mad that someone else is eating and they don't have shit on their plate. That's basically
and it
what
goes
it is.
exactly back to what you said.
Damn, that's deep.
We're like,
well, because I've honestly, to admit, I struggle with jealousy a lot in terms of like opportunities and stuff, or just like dating or life in general. And like for the longest time, I struggled with being jealous of seeing my friends accomplish things, which I hated because I'm like, no, I'm someone who like, if you're the homie,
their success has nothing to do with yours.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's also like, I know statistically, not all of us are going to get it. So if I'm not going to get it, I want at least a homie of mine to get it. So then
it's way better to see somebody like you're friends with get something. Exactly. It's not like, and going back to the thing you said about Portland, like if you're not eating, fucking feed yourself. Like, and then you can feed other people and you will get fed back. Like nobody, if you haven't proven your value to other people in this space, nobody's going to just hand shit out to you.
Because now that I've apparently getting to a point where like a lot of these new people are looking at me like I'm this huge elevated person. I'm like, I ain't shit. Like
none of us are. It's go to a major market and
tell somebody in a different state that you've been doing comedy for 8 years, like, oh, you're a baby.
And that's why when they look at me like that, I'm like, I am nobody.
Yeah.
I realized that after doing like, I don't know, 50 of these podcasts talking to, because I was that person that was looking up to everybody. And I was like, wait a second. The best guy here locally isn't known anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what the fuck does that mean? And it also like, there's not this relationship that's one-to-one where it's like someone who is successful in comedy and is actually good at stand-up.
Right.
Like they're being good at stand-up and being funny are two different things.
Exactly.
Too. Like
exactly.
there are very funny people that are fucking
also,
terrible at stand-up.
Not to shit on younger successful comedians, but like a lot of the younger comedians, like between like 25 and 35, get Netflix specials. 99% of it is connections.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with how successful. Like if I look at somebody and I'm like, this girl's 25 years old and got a full ass special, it's not because that person is more valuable as a comedian. Mm-hmm. It has a lot to do with the connections they have.
And how much value they can be to their agent.
Right.
And also being at the right place at the
potential.
same time. Being at the right place at the right time. Because it's like at the end of the day, comedy is just like every industry, whether it's an art form or not, it's rarely what you know and how good you are at it. It's who you know, period. And comedy is no exception. And it's like, it's like you have that issue of comparing yourself, like they're 25 and they already have a Comedy Central special. It's like, okay, but they know people. Like, for example,
so they're only 25. Like, I don't want to go back to being 25. It was cool at the time, but like,
I just turned 30 and I don't want to go back to 29. Like, but because, like, for example, to do like an analogy, like in music, Billie Eilish, incredible singer, she's super talented, and I firmly believe that no matter what connection she has, she probably would have eventually, blown up. But like she blew up at like 17 or 18, 14, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, she's a prodigy, and I'm like, she is immensely talented, for sure, her and her brother. But let's tone it down on the whole, like, she's so good that she got discovered when she was like, they were going to the, what's it called? The Grammys Academy and all of that kind of shit. And so they knew people.
It's the same thing with like nepotism. Is that people like, oh, this actor's so good. And you look, why their parents have blue names on it Wikipedia? You know, like there's
and not to diminish her or anything like that. I still think despite that, I'm glad she has a career because she's also bringing in this sound that I've personally never heard before. But then at the same time, it's like, she wasn't like a fucking, like, I was singing at the mall and a producer walked by and she got discovered. Like, she had connections.
She had help, but once she got there, you know, she did something with it too.
Right,
so
right. And that's the thing. That's why, like, yes, connections is important, but it also still matters that you're good, because you can blow up, but then immediately fizzle out. But if you're actually good, once you're given that opportunity, you stay around. And like Billy has
Steph Curry is an example of that. Like, his dad, if Steph didn't have the keys to the gym, wasn't relayed to Dell, like all this shit.
But then he proved, like, he won multiple championships.
I'm pretty sure he's proved a couple things at this point. Like,
I don't even watch basketball, and I know who you're talking about. So
right. But yeah, whatchamacallit, fuck, there was like something you brought up that actually, because I wanted to note, because like when you say like people are like, oh, you got booked because you're hot or whatever, that's the thing where like when you leave to a bigger market, like at LA and New York, you realize, oh, there are so many people who are hotter than me and funnier than me.
And younger. So like, cooler. I
got my shit because I got my shit.
Yeah.
Like, if it really came to that, there's way more options. And like, I always hate when people say that. Like, cause like I've always heard people say that to like homies of mine who are women, who are like, a lot of people say I got booked because they needed a woman or because I'm hot. And it's just like unfair, cause you in comedy, yeah, it's nice to be told you're like pretty or whatever, or what, depending on who you are and how your attitude is towards that. But then at the same time, it's like in comedy, you want to be.
Sorry,
you're good. You're good.
It's okay. But in comedy, you want to be recognized for your comedic ability first and foremost.
Yeah,
everything else doesn't matter.
If it was just based on me being hot, I'd have a fucking OnlyFans or some shit. Like, I don't. Like, I don't want anyone booking me thinking, like, I'm just booking her because I want to smush.
Right. Because it diminishes who you are as a comedian. You like also want to be recognized for how funny you are, and nothing else matters, because it's like, that's all I care about. I want people to see me as fun. I want people to see me as funny. If I looked like the fucking troll from Monty Python, or if I looked like this, I want people to recognize I'm funny. And that's why, like, whenever I hear people say that about people, it's just like, yo, you know what? Even if that was the case, then what's your excuse for not getting booked?
Who fucking cares? People are like, people watch your stream because you're hot. Good. And they can see that I'm also bad at video games. You know? It's like, you know?
So yeah, I always thought that if you're out here telling people they're only getting booked because they're like how they look, go fuck yourself. You're just jealous you don't have a spot that night.
Also, if you're getting booked because they think they got something to offer, I'm like, I have nothing to like. I don't book shows. Like, I'm sorry. I would love to have like a comedy stream show, but that takes a lot of planning and preparation. But like, yeah, so it's like, you can talk shit all you want. And back in the day, like you said, you used to get jealous of your friend's success. I was the opposite. I'd be like, oh, they deserve it more than me. I'm never going to get that. Like, I never got like the competitive fuel because I've always been talked down to. I've always like, which is why I self-deprecate, because my whole life I've had shitty relationships with men and friendships with them. And then I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, I'm not this person. This company.
Also, you came up, you did 8 years in stand-up. Like, it's not the best fucking cesspool to be in for mental health. Like,
especially for someone like you who's a woman in a male-dominated thing where it's also like men who are not in the most psychologically well state.
Right? It's just like, it's just so funny. But because I was so used to that, I took it and was like, I won't ever get these opportunities because I don't deserve them.
Right.
And then that fucking talk with my boss, she may not think of it as a big deal, but that changed everything for me.
Human beings are complex, complicated. No one is perfect, and we expect perfection. It's like fucking Bob Ross cheated on his wife or something, and it's just like,
that's why we're
Bob fucking Ross.
That's why we're talking about suicide.
Oh yeah,
we have to realize how broken we are.
This is. So Chris was featured in the Seattle Times recently. Anybody listening and watching,
thank you.
Check that out.
I didn't read it, but congrats.
Most people didn't.
I shared it.
Totally fine. Anyone who did tell me they read it, I'm like, I don't even think I've read it yet. No, I have. And
it was focused on like depression, mental health.
Hell yeah, gang. We out here sad as fuck.
A story associated with that. So I'm going to play the storytime music, cue it up, and then you can tell your suicide story. And then Lisa Kim, we got to wrap up pretty quickly here. So you know.
We're the fucking worst.
Just, yeah, like a quick suicide story.
It's story time. It's story time with Adam. Yeah, it's story time. It's story time with Adam and friends.
It was sexy.
Yeah, it's nice, right?
Yeah, so I wanted to fuck the rabbit from Zootopia.
And now I'm suicidal.
How much time do I have? I don't want to go over.
We probably have like 15
Okay, so I'll try.
between the two of you. So
Okay.
7 minutes to talk about your killing.
So basically in February of 2021, basically from quarantine starting into 2021, I was just very depressed, and I always thought I knew how to be alone and be by myself, and I truly didn't. And I think I think on a subconscious level I knew that, but I wasn't wanting to admit it. So instead of just trying to use that time to learn to like love myself and not need outside validation, I was seeking validation elsewhere. And previously in the past, I was get that validation from comedy. But now that I've lost that, I no longer know. I didn't have an outlet, so I was like using like dating and stuff as that outlet. And basically, like I don't handle rejection well. And like I didn't get depressed and want to kill myself because of dating woes. I have always been a depressed person. I've always battled with depression. And a lot of people think you go through depression and then you're cured and it never happens again. When in actuality, I feel like depression just goes in remission and then comes back at a different time. And a lot of people don't think that. And they think, oh, well, you're broken. And it's just like, no, depression never goes away.
Yeah.
Bro, you came off drugs too. Like, all of us did. For people that were doing stand-up as much as we were. Like,
it was a drug.
You were getting this massive amount of endorphins being released every night to then be like, hey, you'll be good. And also, you can't be around anybody.
Yeah.
And
also, DoorDash might kill you.
Yeah. So it was just for anyone that didn't do stand-up at the time, like the pandemic sucked.
Yeah.
Like in general, but to like also be going through withdrawal to start.
Yeah. And also another thing as well, what really drove me into depression was not only that, but then also stand up still to this day feels like the only thing I'm good at. Mm-hmm. So it's like the only thing that I felt like I brought value and worth to the world was now gone. And I truly felt like I'm worthless. I have no value. There's no purpose of me being in this world. And I was just already, because of comedy was what brought me to my lowest. Like not having it brought me to my lowest, and just the dating stuff was just the straw that broke the camel's back. Like it wasn't, no one I was seeing caused the breakdown. I think it was just, I was looking for an excuse to like, it was basically like there's already a pile that's about to fall and a bird lands on it.
Oh, absolutely.
The bird is not the reason why the landslide happened. It was already going to happen.
But if you want to put the name of that bird in the show notes for this episode, we can do that.
But yeah, I got rejected, and it was the straw that broke the camel's back. And it sucks that that's what it is, because I hate looking back at it. At first, I would look back and I'm like, really? I almost killed myself because of this? And it's just like, no, I was already wanting to kill myself. That
was the peak. That was the trigger.
Yeah, it was the peak. It was very much just the levee burst. And I had a breakdown. I had a very terrible breakdown that night. It was super late at night. I had like one of those fitness bands and tried to hang it on my door to hang myself, and then learned that stretchy things don't make good hanging rope.
How did I not know this?
That's why they're called resistance bands, by the way.
Like, let me tell you, nothing hurts more than when you like jump to hang yourself
and you fail
and
at
you
it.
hit the floor.
I didn't know you actually attempted.
I attempted because before doing that, I even tried like punching my head really hard and slamming my head against the walls, and I was like, this hurts. And then I grabbed the kitchen knife, and then I thought, No, that also seems like it hurts. So then I thought hanging is the solution.
Wait, so how did you even do this?
The hanging. So basically I took the resistance band and like put it on the top of the door and then closed it on it.
This is like the most Seattle way of killing yourself. I used a resistance band to hang myself.
Yeah, so then that way when they found my body, they're like, oh, but he gets cardio in.
I was in all Patagonia.
And I just put it on the door, closed the door tight, because I would do that to do like a back exercise. So then they're like, that's what I'm gonna do. But I did it the opposite way, where the handles were at the top and it was like the rest of the rope here. And like it failed. And then that's when I really started to break down, because it was like, it's like, to be honest, it wasn't that I wanted to die. I just didn't want to exist anymore.
When you were saying that, I had that mental image of that stay at home thing that everybody was tagging on Instagram. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry.
I mean, yeah, it was like I should have been outside. Yeah. But I didn't want to exist anymore, because existing hurt more than any of the pain I was trying to give myself. And killing myself just seemed like the solution to not having it. Because it was not only like I was sad and I lost that thing, but at that time, we had no idea when things would go back to normal. Mm-hmm. And that uncertainty just made things so hard for me. It felt like I don't have purpose anymore, and I didn't want to be around. So that's why I wanted to kill myself. And after I failed the attempt, I called the National Suicide Lifeline, that now 998, that's what you dial.
Is it 988?
988. Yeah.
Giving people the wrong fucking number.
Yeah, I'm gonna have someone calling Wendy's on accident. I want to kill myself. Like, hey, we got spicy nugs. Like,
Chris has the worst suicide advice: resistance bands, wrong number.
This is how to do it poorly.
But yeah, I called, and the operator. Like, I'm gonna be honest. When I called the hotline, I thought the hotline was bullshit. I didn't think it was gonna help me at all. I didn't think calling a hotline was gonna help. I thought, like, I'm going to call this, but I'm still going to want to kill myself. And the operator talked to me, and I could tell the operator was a black woman. I could just tell by her name and also just the way she spoke. But
what do you mean by that? Sorry, go on. Keep
going. Her name was Alyssa.
Yeah, that therapy voice.
No, it's just like I've met aunties before. And she at a time when I couldn't talk to my therapist because it was fucking late. And even then, I was just so far gone that I wasn't even confident. I wasn't seeing my therapist because I knew, like when you're depressed and you want to kill yourself, you know that getting help is easy.
There's like a wall between you and yourself, too.
But where you kind of feel like I don't want to help myself because I feel like I deserve this pain. And that's why I didn't reach out to friends. No one knew, and I didn't want anyone to know. Because one, I was afraid of telling someone, and I was going to come off as a burden. But then also two, I was just like, I deserve this pain. And maybe if I don't do it, like, I was more scared of getting better and having to exist than I was more scared of that than killing myself.
Well, they say too, the people that don't talk about it are way more likely to do it. So like I was suicidal. That's what got me into comedy, actually. Like, had I not started doing stand-up, I think I probably would have killed myself.
Honestly, stand-up...
And it makes me want to kill myself just as much. So
stand-up coming back... Like, I know it's cheesy to say where, like, comedy saved my life or people like hip-hop saved my life. Like, comedy really did save my life. And when it came back, I was so happy. But I still, to this day, I'm scared. What if comedy goes away again? Like, what am I going to do?
We'll do this podcast. And you can fucking call your friends this time.
Let me raid your Twitch channel. There you go.
But anyway, I'll wrap this up. But called the suicide hotline. She helped me out because it felt like I was really being heard and listened to. And she didn't have really, she had advice, but at the end of the day, I wasn't being presented solutions. I wasn't being told anything that was radically different than if I would have approached a friend. But it was just, it's hard to explain. It was what I needed. And she, I know I do it in my bit, but she really did at the end, ask, what are your plans?
Taco Bell?
And I told her Taco Bell, and she got more concerned. But then I remember a week later, I had another breakdown. I wanted to kill myself again. I didn't try to hang.
You're like, this one.
I was like, let me call. But I was like, I'm going to call a different hotline. I want to evaluate different ones. And the second hotline I called was like religiously run. And a dude answered, and I could tell he was a boomer because like when I was talking about my depression and my woes, he was like telling me to suck it up. And then I chose to live to spite that man. I was like, you know what, Frederick? Fuck yourself.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I am going to live just to spite you. So I highly recommend call the National Lifeline. Any others like that religious run suicide hotline is that guy fucking sucked. Don't do that. But yeah, I really didn't want to live. And thankfully right now, I have purpose. I want to live. There's things I want to see through. But I think when we talk about mental health and stuff, we talk about, get through your depression. And we talk about it from a tone of like, you're going to get cured and it goes away forever. When in actuality, it's like, you're going to get through this now, but it will come back.
It can be situational, but depression is not being sad. It's a chemical imbalance that causes like, I don't know if we'll have time for the full story.
Yeah, you go into your thing. I'm done.
Fiance. But yeah, I lost my partner back in 2018 from what is suicide, but he went missing. He was never found. And I'm just going to go because the story I want to talk about is what I'm dealing with now. Mm-hmm. But like, I did not know he was suicidal. Like he literally called me one day after he had like a rough night, went to bed early and was like, I tried to kill myself last night. And I was like, the fuck? And he's like, I'm going to a hospital right now and I won't be able to talk to you till Monday. I was like, that's what I got. And we were like, what? We never fought anything. And so I showed up because he was in the military. He was at Fort Lewis, picked him up. He was a completely different person. It's like I didn't even recognize him. And so for the whole week, I was like trying to babysit him and like make him feel better. I took him to like Snoqualmie Falls. We went on hikes, went to the aquarium. It was like, like taking care of a child almost. Like, do you want to get ice cream? And then finally the day before he went missing, I was like, hey, I can't make it up to you. Like, I got to get my car fixed, blah, blah, blah. And he lived 3 hours up north. He goes, totally fine. Like, we'll just hang out tomorrow night. And we're sending each other memes. And I still have the text messages. And during that time, he was writing a suicide note. And then the next day, I got the call that he didn't show up to work. And that was a whole mess. Like, he went missing. The military didn't give a fuck about him. I posted on Facebook, got 35,000 shares. I had people calling me a murderer, blaming death. I got doxxed at work for it. It was the worst fucking months of my life because I was like, I don't know what to do. And I don't know who to go to. And I also have dealt with suicidal ideation. So I was also just angry at myself that I was not there that night. And I always feel guilty about that, even though I know it's not my fault. But I read his note and I was reading it and I was like, man, this is not John. I still have the note and I read it sometimes. I'm like, that's not fucking, that John would have never said that shit. Like, that was a fucking disease that took over him. And that's the only reason why I've been able to survive the worst parts of my life, is because I realized that this was not him that did this. And when you are suicidal, when you're at your lowest,
you're not you.
It's foggy. Mm-hmm. Like, people will tell you like, no, it's okay, you're loved, but like, you don't there's a wall between you and that.
I started talking to myself like in my head when I was at like my lowest. It was so bad that it was sort of like almost like I could see like a disconnect between who I am now versus like the thing that was like sort of controlling me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I still talk to those voices all the time, guys. But like, it was seriously, it got that like disassociated.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But the thing is what I want to talk about now is I had a relapse with suicide just a few months ago.
Oh shit.
Because what had happened is that I was so used to just kind of being miserable. Because I was like, I lost what I still believe was my soulmate. And I still, like, even though, like, I've moved on, I've dated, blah, blah, like, he was a part of me that I don't have anymore. And so when I got my job and had that talk with my boss and started working for people who saw value in me, things started to change. Like, I started making, like, wow, I don't have to live paycheck to paycheck now. And I'm doing healthier and blah, blah. But that made me so fucking depressed. Because I was like, I am so used to being miserable that now things are good or happening to me, it's giving me anxiety. Like, you don't know
how to handle the happiness.
And telling people that, they would laugh at me. Like, oh, I'm sorry that your life is so good you can't handle it. I'm like, you have no idea how much of a struggle this is.
Yeah, because you start to believe it's not going to last long.
Or something bad needs to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I have to have, like, there's no way I deserve all this. I've cried on stream about it because I'm like, I can't handle it. And, you know, I tried dating earlier this year, and one of my issues getting into a relationship is that I could not accept love from another person. Like I still had things from my last relationship I had to work through. And so now I go to therapy and I'm like medicated. I make a joke about OCD. I don't know if you've seen it, where I'm like where she's like, how's the OCD medication working for you? And I go, well, I'm just cleaning slower now, you know, like, but
yeah, I saw that.
Like me, it's like I still struggle with it. Like, the other day, somebody, I don't know if you saw my story, somebody broke my car. Like, I don't know if you parked in that church yard, you can see my little duct tape mirror and like my car's all smashed. And I was like, dude, that's awful. But in my head, it was like a relief. I was like, I just need something bad to happen because I have so much anxiety about things being good. And like, people don't realize that. They look at celebrities or people who are happy and they go, how did Anthony Bourdain take their life, or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you have no idea what people are struggling with. And it's the same thing. It's a wall. It's like anyone who had my life would be in a better place, but they don't deal with the chemical imbalance of mental illness that blocks it from you. And so I go back and I read that note from John and I understand it now. I didn't understand it years ago because I was in the same mindset. And John had a really good life with me. Like, we were a great couple. He had a good job, but he still took his life. And I never understood why. And now that I'm in the same boat as him, I understand it.
And that's the thing when people are like, oh, but they were so loved and all that. You can literally have everything. And still, like, for example, people, like, when I was doing the Seattle Times story, the reporter asked me, like, about, like, Robin Williams and Jack Knight. And I told him, like, Robin Williams hit comics a lot because we saw that and realized, oh, you mean I could literally accomplish everything and still not escape the depression that I have? Like, that's not going to bring me the happiness. And that's why, like, when people list these, like, requirements of, like, oh, but they had this and they had that and they had that, like, none of that shit actually
matters.
Dude, because you can have money, you can have the job, you can have the bookings, but the second you go to your room,
Britney Spears' Lucky, one of the greatest songs of all time, talks about it. Like, it's true. It's like, yeah, because we were the same way too. Like, we've seen people we admire take their lives and we struggled to understand it. And John was one of those people. And now that I'm becoming someone I would admire, my younger self would be admiring that now. I struggle more now than I did when I was sad because I was just so used to it, you know? And now I'm like, so something is wrong with me. Yeah. You know?
You can be loved, but if you can be a very loved person, but if you don't have love for yourself, none of that shit matters. Because it's about accepting that love. And if you won't even accept love from yourself, you're not going to accept it from anyone else who's trying to reach out and help you.
And all those external validations, like, they're like, do you ever look back at like 3 years, 4 years at what you were doing and like see how much you've grown now? Like what you were talking about with sets and shit.
Yeah.
Like, you're always looking forward in entertainment. Like, like, oh, what have I not done? Or these other people, what have they done? But you rarely look back and be like, oh, I remember, like, I couldn't even get on stage at some of these. And now people are like, oh, Chris Mejia is like, it's
and you're like, I don't even realize that though.
No, it's like, and you don't even think of it as being like it is a big deal. Like that's growth right there. And I've worked with people that are like big names in entertainment. Like, but these people, like, one-on-one, that hurt. But like that person one-on-one, I was so surprised by how unhappy they were and those feelings were not being met. And it's an internal thing. Like, you're trying to fill something up externally.
It's the reason why we look at the negative comments. Like, you can get thousands of positive comments,
but that one comment,
that one bad comment, you're like, you know what? Fuck you, man.
Look, you're doing a show to a packed room and everyone is laughing, but the light is perfectly shining on the one dude with the stone face
who happened to have like his car broken into half an hour before the show.
None of this is related to what you're doing.
Nothing to do with you.
But we think it's okay. Clearly, I'm not funny. Because like, to bring that thing up, I think I learned this in therapy or just somewhere else, of realizing we spend so much time chasing after something that when we finally get it, we don't even allow ourselves to celebrate because we then go, well, what's the next thing? And what's the next thing?
And we're
I think
like
that's
old and it's not as good.
And like,
My
I think
back hurts.
that's what adds to it, where it's like, I've been trying my best to get better at like taking that step back and acknowledge. Cause like, yeah, like for example, when the Comedy Underground was open, I spent so much, like I hosted one night on a Sunday and I'm like, damn, next year I want to at least host 3 times. And then it got to a point where I was being asked to host so much that I was turning some down.
Yeah.
And I'd even realize in that moment of like, I not only accomplished my goal,
but I should have forwarded this to Lisa. She would have taken out.
You're right. I should have sent it your way. But
And the thing that you initially wanted, you don't
even want it anymore.
It's crazy.
And
It's
same
insane.
thing. I had a goal of like, I want to feature more. And then now like I'm lucky. I hate saying blessed, but I can't think of a better term, but like I'm blessed enough that I'm at a point where like I regularly feature, and that's not really something I have to work for right now. And it's like, you got to have those moments to take a step back and acknowledge the growth you've had, whether it's career wise, whether it's like physical, like if you're someone like I've been, I'm in better shape, and mentally and emotionally of like, oh shit, before, I would just like date someone, and if they just showed me any validation, I would just run into it no matter what the red flags. Whereas like later on, you're like, okay, I'm able to recognize red flags now. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's more of a decision, like a thought out decision of like, I'm going to see this person. And because they have passed, like I have looked through shit versus like, I just want to be with someone and I don't want to be alone.
What you want.
Exactly.
Even if you're unhappy with yourself, you're like, I still know what I want.
Right.
But that's all. But you don't notice that. You're like, you don't notice how much you've grown because you're so stuck on those parts that still need approving.
Exactly.
It's funny because both you guys have come on. You were like episode 30. I would think you were episode like 50 something.
Like that. Yeah.
And I noticed, just like, I'm sure people listening and stuff notice a difference in both of you, and it's cool to see that growth. Mm-hmm. Like, and as your friends,
I just got more tattoos and boobs, but yeah, you're right.
I mean, even with you, the way, like, because I didn't really get to know you until once things started opening.
Yeah.
And like who you were last year versus now, like you're more confident in what you do, but like I feel like it's more in the sense of you're confident of like you're aware of you and like what you bring to the table, and you're like honing in on that versus like, not saying you were doing this before, but like, you were going on stage just trying to be funny. Whereas now I feel like you are
funny.
You are funny. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
But I think, it's like growth, recognizing growth. If you don't recognize your growth, it can honestly stop your growth.
Also, give your friends feedback.
Yeah.
I've realized how important that is. Like, I've started to do that, not like writing them fucking tags, but like being like, hey, dude, you're fucking killing it. Like that shit fucking helps.
A simple, like, because lately on Instagram, I've just been being okay with like being vulnerable about real vulnerable shit that like the recent thing that I was like posting a lot of vulnerable shit. I woke up the next day and I was like, why the fuck did I say any of that? Like, oh my God, people want to think I'm a wimp. People want to think I'm sensitive. People want to think like I'm this delicate little flower. And it's funny, hot take. Like every time I'm vulnerable and I speak up like that on social media or on stage, I talk about my suicide and all that. I've had so many people approach me and be like, hey, it's so nice to see a guy be vulnerable and not give a fuck about being vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Especially like someone of color. Like you never see that with men, and especially not in the colored community. And like, hot take, we keep saying as a society, we want men to be vulnerable, but we don't find that like desirable. Mm-hmm. Like you're still seen as weak, no matter if it's like coming from a man or a woman or like you're non-binary.
An artist. Like you're like, all of us are insecure, like emotional people.
Right.
And it's okay to be that. Like,
right.
There's this like attitude in comedy where it's like, oh, I'm the big bad one up here. It's like, you're going on stage to get validated by strangers because you're insecure about yourself. Like that's not like, oh, you're brave because you were dumb enough to go up there to begin with. Like you were stupid enough because you were terrible for a long period of time.
Also, everything now is very superficial.
Yeah.
Everything.
Oh yeah.
All of content.
People think
not this podcast.
I interrupted you. Go
this
ahead.
podcast is very real.
Yeah, no. Well, that's the thing. That's why I love podcasting and streaming, is because it is real, authentic reactions. And the same thing with you posting a story or something that's vulnerable. It's like, you don't see that shit every day. And if you do, it's normally like, mental health check. Make sure you're drinking your water, bitches. Like, it's not like, hey, this is a real, like I posted on my story about how I think it's really cool that I'm playing MGS. And I thought people were going to bully me for not playing literally one of the popularest game series all time, but instead they were very welcoming. And I almost started tearing up, because I was like, I've never experienced, like I've always had toxic male gamer friends, and now I have people who like genuinely are excited to see me start shit.
Right. And then you have that one negative comment that's like, you suck, and you're like, you just...
Actually, they were like, MGS isn't even that good. I was like, fuck you, bitch, fucking virgin. Okay.
It's very. In one of my stories, I wrote about how, like the vulnerability I have about, like with comedy, the anxiety I have of just like, am I niche? Like, am I not going to make it because of that? Am I like doing enough? Am I doing too little? Like all of those anxieties that all of us as comics have. And I posted that, and then I thought, oh, people are going to think, I don't believe in myself and I'm a shitty comic, and that's why. And then
this is like the worst case version of that. Like you're being honest, and you're like, oh, well, they're gonna think the worst.
The jig is up. And not to mention another podcast, but I remember the Pretty Dumb podcast with Courtney Bird and Richie Armani. They posted their latest episode and they tagged that I was mentioned. So obviously that's how you get me to listen to a podcast. You told me I was featured on it or talked about.
On my live stream.
Yeah, honestly, it'll work. It'll work. It'll work. And when it got to the point, they were talking about things they're obsessed with. And Courtney, thank you for the shout out, mentioned how she saw that story of me talking about that and how it was refreshing to see like from her point of view, she was like, it was refreshing to see someone who was above me in comedy going through the same anxiety that like I go through. And I think that's why it's such a mental health toll comedy on people, because we're not being honest with each other of like, I also don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And I also don't know if I'm going to make it. And it scares me every day. Like people have told me like, oh, you're so fun, you'll make it. And it's just like, you could be the funniest fucking person in the world and still never make it. A lot of the ones that
have said that it took them getting to the point where they were okay with that never happening,
right,
to even be the funniest version of themselves on stage.
Right.
So like, you shouldn't even be wasting any mental time on that.
Right.
Like and what is it? Like, you were good with doing this to begin with without the concept of it being this other thing. Like, why can't it just be something that you love doing?
I've been trying to pivot to viewing comedy as like, yes, I would like to make it. Yes. But at the end of the day, I want to be happy, because after wanting to kill myself last year and like honestly having depressive bouts this year and recently where I wanted to kill myself again, I am realizing, you know what? I just want to be on my deathbed and feel like I was happy. Whether I made it or not, whether I always do comedy.
You're not going to give a fuck at the end, even if that's the case. You know, like,
you're going to regret your tattoos. I'm like, I don't even fucking notice them.
No, it just becomes part of you.
You could tattoo a dick behind my ears. I probably forget about it in a week. You know,
because honestly,
ear dick.
And I say that because majority of my 20s was spent focusing on comedy so much that now I know I'm barely 30. I turned 30 in June, but like I look back and I'm like, most of my 20s wasn't spent being happy.
Before we end this, I do have to add, I've talked about this. It's because in high school, they have you feel like you have to figure out your shit.
That is very true.
Your entire 20s, you're trying to figure out what you want to do, who you got to impress, blah, blah. You turn 30, you're like, oh, none of this shit matters.
Yeah.
32, I'm 32, best year of my fucking life, because I stopped giving a fuck about
exactly,
that.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
Also, I got hotter.
Yeah, I will say when I got a glow up, it did improve
like,
a lot of things.
Now I can see Exactly.
I can fuck now.
Maybe I did get booked because I'm hot, but you know what? I'll focus on being funny. Just kidding.
All right. So before we go, where can people find your guys' stuff?
You want to go first?
At WISALLEN. It's Lisa Wallen, not Lisa Wallen, on literally everything: TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter. Yeah.
I remember you got a handful of things.
Yeah. I'll speed through it. So at Chris Mejia Comedy on Instagram and TikTok. At Topher Mejia, TOPHER, shut up, MEJIA, on Twitter and Twitch. I co-run Good Comedy Show here in Seattle. We do shows at Bad Jimmy's, and then once the winter comes back, we'll be closing Bad Jimmy's and doing the Hereafter, the Crocodile Comedy Club. So follow at Good Comedy Show to find out about our shows and stuff. We got some good shit coming through. And then also for Twitch, like I very randomly, sporadically stream, but come through because it's fun when I'm not streaming to just 2 people, which one of those people is my laptop.
I will come raid your channel.
Thank you.
What's your Twitch handle?
At Topher Mejia.
Okay, cool.
And then, I also have a podcast myself at We Didn't Get a Rose, is a Bachelorette recap podcast with the homie Mike Carosa, my sweetie, honey, baby, my lover. But yeah, support local comedy, go to local comedy shows because they deserve your support. And yeah, that's it.
I forgot to plug my show. I'm an idiot. I have a bi-weekly show on the Evil Geniuses channel called Lisa's Lair. That's twitch.tv/Evil Geniuses. And I interview people in the gaming industry. It's pretty cool.
Oh, one last thing to plug. Since we are, no. Since we are talking about mental health and stuff, I want to say highly recommend therapy. Obviously, it's not super accessible, but if you are fortunate enough where you can access it, I highly recommend. And you're not in therapy, you want to start, go to psychologytoday.com. You can find therapists in your local area based off of your insurance, based off of what like issues and stuff that they cover and like how they cover and how they help. So I highly recommend that. Therapy, if you go for the first time, it doesn't work out, that's not indicative of you as a person. Finding a therapist is kind of like dating where you got to find one that clicks with you. I got lucky enough where the first therapist I saw, we clicked. So just if you see a therapist is not working, keep trying to find one. It will pay off once you find that therapist, but also not everything is for everyone. So if it doesn't go well for you,
you can spend $5 a month and sub to my Twitch channel.
You can do that. And then if you are at that point where you want to kill yourself, I want you to know you are not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. You deserve to be happy. Don't rob yourself of the happiness in your future.
Also, it's not you that wants to kill yourself. It's your mental illness.
Exactly. Because I wanted to kill myself because I didn't think there was light at the end of the tunnel. And I think back to all of the great things I would have missed out last year if I killed myself. And I'm glad that I was able to experience that. So I promise you, I didn't think there was going to be light at the end of the tunnel for me. I promise there's a light at the end of the tunnel for you. Call the lifeline. It does help. Don't call the religious one. That guy's a piece of shit.
Hey, just know the flop is always the darkest before the slay. I saw that tweet recently. I was like, that's true. It is. You're gonna have that fucking moment where you want to kill yourself, and then randomly months later, shit just gets.
It's true.
Shit always gets better.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. Anybody listening or watching, there was an episode we did, episode 126, with the situational therapist. And we dove into mental health stuff quite a bit. He named a bunch of resources for people to check out. So if you want more of a detailed mental health, centric, like what do I do in these difficult situations, check out that episode. Thank you for listening and for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to rate, review us, hit that subscribe and notifications bell. Also, if you're just listening, rate and review us. And as always, follow us on Instagram at FNFpod. We're going to leave you with Jaga.
I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. My wave pool, my wave pool. Welcome to 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 my wave pool.